welcome to the Possum Pit Podcast. And I got to be honest with you, I have not done much prep work for this, but I do have some things I want to talk about today. How you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Russ,
Good,
sick?
man.
Sick but here.
Sick but here.
Present.
Everybody have a good Thanksgiving?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
The best part of my Thanksgiving was not being at the fucking job I work at.
Yeah. For the first time in 13 years, I had to work the day after Thanksgiving. Really? Yeah. A new company took over our place, and they ain't into the 2 days off with pay. I would have gladly taken it without pay, just to not have to go.
Trump's been president for 2 weeks, and you're already having to work more hours.
I know. I already got to work more hours.
Place already going to hell.
I know.
Well, he's not really president. Wait till next year.
All
He's
he
president
had to be done was elected, and the country's already going to hell. Clayton's already having to work more hours.
But there's going to be a recount, so Hillary's going to be it.
But Trump already killed Castro, so we're good. Check one for Trump.
The 14 people who listen to us is now down to 7.
What?
Oh, well.
The others were commies, and they don't want to hear this kind of mess?
They just don't want to hear this kind of, I don't want to hear this kind of mess. I shouldn't even brought it up.
All right, well, let's talk about something important.
Well, I'm glad you. Well, what do we do the next day? Steve and I got together. Not, got together, but we met up.
Right.
And went to Record Store Day over at Repo Record here in Charlotte. And kind of, this is, I don't say get too heavy, but it kind of goes back to the first episode where we were talking about reissues and all that stuff. And of course, that's what Record Store Day is, basically reissue store day. But I wanted to hit an aspect of it, and I'm sorry I didn't prep you guys for this because I really kind of came to it today. An aspect of that is less important to Record Store Day, but it brings a question to me, and that is of what I bought yesterday. I bought 4 records. Mm-hmm. 3 of them are reissues, or they are something that is repackaging old stuff.
Right.
Old songs, old recordings. Maybe it might be a new recording of an old song. I bought one thing, and it was that Metallica record. That is actually new stuff. But most of the stuff that comes out on Record Store Day is old. But it kind of hit me, being fans of this kind of music, and we all love old stuff. We all love a lot of the classic bands. We like a lot of the new stuff. And it's also kind of a question that goes to you, having been in the same band for 33 years. What keeps a band relevant with regards to making new music? It seems like it's a fine line for some bands to walk, because I bought the new Metallica record and I listened to it. It's half and half. There's half of it's really good and half of it's not. The stuff that's really good is rehashing old ideas. It's them trying to be what they were 30 years ago. So then you have people over here who say, wow, this is really great. I wish they would do more of this. They need to keep rehashing the same old stuff. Then you have the other side saying, well, they're just trying to make a buck. They're trying to stay relevant. At what point, what is the secret, or what do you think is the secret to staying relevant with regards to making new music?
It's weird you'd ask that, because Russ and I have had this conversation on our all-night drives. We talk about this from time to time, because, I sometimes wonder that myself. Like, why do we make new music? We're 33 years into it. There's a big group of songs that people want to hear every show. And I just wonder, is anyone really interested in us putting out anything new? I found out that they are. They're always asking for when's the new stuff. And are we ever going to make another one that secures our spot like Eat More Possum did? I don't know. But when you play music, part of your process is that you write music. And even though it's taken us longer these days, and a lot of that's because of me, you still want to put out new stuff, but it has come to a time in our band's history where I can dig deep down and find those old things from 30-something years ago and put those out just as time capsule pieces that people are interested in. I don't think anyone's expecting it like, oh, this is their new record. It's just stuff that people are interested in hearing. And I think that's what some of these bigger groups do. Like, I got one. The Isaac Hayes and the Barkays jam that we were talking about. I got that. I mean, that's nothing they would have put out while each of those artists were still performing. But now that they're not, and they're not going to be putting out anything new, it was really cool to hear that stuff that they were just kind of messing around with back in the 70s, you know. But as far as what keeps it, relevant, I'm not sure. Maybe you can answer that best, being, especially for us, having been on the outside for so long and now being on the end. Now you're in the part that makes the music, whereas for decades you were listening to it. So, what do you think about all that?
Well, I think it's very different for underground bands versus, for lack of a better word, commercial bands. Metallica being a commercial band, that's their career. It's what they do. They have nothing else. We have day jobs. We have real life. We have stuff that we constantly contend with. And this isn't just anti-scene, but any independent / underground band or whatever, where this is essentially kind of an expensive hobby in one sense, but at the same time, we still have real life reality of stuff that's going to feed, whatever fuels you to write and to keep moving forward. You always still have something to draw from, as opposed to a band like Metallica, where it becomes more apparent if they're treading water, because that's all they do. That's their, they've got money, they've got security, they've got no other obligation other than, well, we got to make another record, guys, I that's my feeling on it, and I feel that way about, be it Metallica or Kiss or whoever. There's very few bands I can think of that probably don't, fit that mold.
But you're talking about on that scale.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a difference. I think if for a band that's independent, they don't have to strive to find any sort of relevance, because it's all relevant to what they've got in their own. I think a lot of bands, that goes into a whole nother thing. I don't want to get into how, the validity of what makes a band valid or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But people are drawing from whatever true life experience. I think it's a much more honest thing. Kind of like, almost like old blues guys. Those guys were relevant had a lot longer period of relevancy in their style of music because they were always living close to the ground. I think there's a disconnect once you've gotten to that level where you've got money and security and fame and wealth and fortune and all that goes with it. So you look at a group like that and you can see more readily, well, they're just doing something convoluted. They're because there's nothing feeding them now. Does that make sense? That whole "you're not hungry anymore" kind of thing.
I thought it was cool. I think I fall somewhere in the middle, not being in a band anymore, because seeing like John Oates a few months ago in front of 100 people, he didn't have to do that. But he kept saying, I'm a songwriter, and he was pushing his records that I would never buy, and I love the guy because he's like, I need to put my kids through school. And I'm like, man, that's pretty cool. This guy flew across the country to play in front of 100 people. That's a real songwriter. He's already a millionaire, so there's somewhere in the middle with it probably. I think the millionaires probably still want to have their music heard, but they're not on this earth like we are. They don't. There's still a disconnect, but they probably still want to have their stuff heard, but there's not. It wouldn't be like whoever's getting the money for the Ramones record. They're not millionaires by far.
I read a quote from Iggy Pop once when he was talking about making a new album. This is like last 5 years or something, and I can't remember it verbatim or nothing, but basically it was along the same lines of, there's a sort of a stubborn stubbornness, and that
to it.
you know, he makes music. That's what he does. You know, and the creative. I guess there's a creative impulse in him still that makes him. You know, but he does different things. You know, he doesn't. I mean, he did that French. I don't know what kind of, you know, these weren't, I don't know if those are standards or what, like almost like torch song stuff, you know, that was really left field stuff for him, but that was an area of something, you know, he can do that, you know, a guy like Bowie could do that. They could kind of shift and morph. They could retain their sense of style while changing styles. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And bands like Metallica seem to have a really hard time with that. You know, the only, you know, there's a difference between being convoluted and consistent. Yeah. And I see a band like Slayer, who I'm not a fan of, but I see them as consistent. Whereas I see Metallica as being convoluted, and I think they've totally lost the plot. I feel the same way about Kiss. You know, I think they're convoluted. They're looking now consciously to recreate some sort of vibe or style that they had.
But
in the
oddly,
70s.
you would think, we had this conversation yesterday, you would think of all the bands that would jump on Record Store Day.
Oh yeah,
that would be the one.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it's odd.
Well,
I don't know.
you know, I think it kind of comes down to the fact that those people, regardless of how rich they are or how much money we think they have or how good they have it, they're human beings, and they have the same egos and need to stay relevant. You know, whether it be like Keith Richards putting out a solo record. What the fuck's Keith Richards need to put a solo record out for? He's a bajillionaire. He's one of the most respected guitar players in the world, and he puts out a solo record that probably didn't break 50,000.
And on that Netflix documentary, did you notice he seemed a million times more happier playing that crap than he ever did playing a Rolling Stone song the last 20 years? I mean, did you notice that?
Yeah, I
mean,
noticed.
So that's it. That's where his heart is.
Well, I think a lot of people want to be solo artists. I mean, I don't think Steven Tyler would be. I think Aerosmith has been a weight around his neck for.
Well, they're getting ready to call it quits
for 30
anyway.
years.
Yeah.
I think
you think that'll happen?
I think
They're doing a farewell tour in Europe.
But I think the same thing with the Stones. I think if Gene and Paul could keep the same momentum musically away from Kiss, they would. Yeah. Those guys hate each other. I mean, but they're another good one. They have said that no one cares about new music, and since they have said that, they have made 2 records that have just been, you know, lackluster sales. No one's cared about them.
Well, man,
but they're not good records.
Well, they're not good records, but
that goes into the relevant thing. I mean, at some point you'll know because the quality will be there.
But if it's good, is it still going to sell? I mean,
no, not necessarily.
I think those guys want to be relevant on a
commercial scale. Yeah. Well, that's what I mean by Metallica. I think that's, like I said, there's a difference between convoluted and consistent. I don't think that Slayer looks at themselves as a band that's going to have. They know their audience. They know what their core is. They're going to stay to what they do, and you know, it's going to be what it's going to be. I think Metallica seems to think they're going to.
Well, I think Metallica. I think
they got to one up what they did before or something.
You bring Slayer up, and it doesn't surprise me, but I'm glad you did, because you're right. Slayer, and I'm not a huge fan. I like things. I'm not a huge Slayer fan, and as a band that knows exactly what they can do, knows that they can't do anything but that, and they keep plugging away, doing the same thing, album after album, and it has been very, very little differentiation with their song output over 30 some odd years, kind of like how Anacene does. I mean, Anacene has had there's been, the songwriting may have changed a little bit, but for the most part, it's 3 chords, 2 minutes. That's not really changed. I think you've done experimental things.
3 chords. I thought it was supposed to be. I've been doing it wrong. I thought it was 2 chords, 3 minutes.
No, it's not 3 minutes. Everything's 2 minutes or under now.
I gotta start all over again.
But in this conversation, and I don't spend a bunch of time talking about it, but I do. It kind of dawned on me that a lot of musicians are in a tough spot, because it's like, hey, you can't make everybody happy. And has there been just personally within you, has there ever been a point in which you thought that you need to go back to a certain thing, or that you need to you need to write songs that sound like a certain era? Or do you think you've been doing that all along?
Man, there's a lot of parts to this I want to talk about. There was a time in the band's history where Joe and I kind of took hands off a little bit more than we normally would have, and that's when we had Barry and Doug. And there's a period of 2 albums there that are predominantly Barry and Doug, and one probably more so than the other. But it wasn't that Joe and I didn't want, like, oh, well, we don't want to write songs anymore. It's just that we had 2 good musicians and songwriters in the band, and we wanted to see what they would do. And they turned out a lot of stuff that we like to do, you know. And I mean, I don't know if the audience saw it that way or what, but it just kind of happened. It wasn't like a thing we sat down and decided, you know. But like, if some typical record store hipsters listening to us right now, they're saying, well, you're not talking about any bands that are relevant now, you know, because there's that whole entire group of indie groups that none of us know anything about. We may have heard their names and stuff, and maybe everything we're talking about to some people has no relevance at all. But there got to a point where I would ask myself, and it didn't mean I disliked the group any, or I wasn't a fan anymore, but I mean, did you really need new Rolling Stone songs after a certain point?
No, I mean, I that's what this is. That's what this conversation.
Did you
about.
really need to hear any new Motorhead? Did you does anyone really need new AC/DC songs? I mean, I don't.
But they keep going.
I know a lot of fans that love people that love AC/DC, and on different levels too. You know, people like me, that's all Bon Scott, and you know, and then the people that came along later, and then the people that are fans now. But I mean, if AC/DC wants to put out albums, wants to put out 10 more albums, I mean, more power to them. I'm a fan. Am I going to buy their next 10 albums? Probably not. You know, I think the last one I bought was Black Ice, and there was a gap in between that one and the last one.
Rock or Bust.
I got, you know.
One before that.
And it's not that I don't like AC/DC anymore. I do.
And it's not that you don't think what they're putting out now has got good stuff. It's just that you don't care.
It's just, you know, like, I don't want to buy, you know, a new Kiss albums and new songs, and I don't know if that makes you like a fair weather fan or what, but you know, I got the ones I like, and that's.
But that's Kiss. But I know you have bought new records of old bands that put out new songs, and we're happy about it. Like, I can't think off the top of my head.
I'm trying to think.
But like, I know that when Alice Cooper put out 2 records about 10 years ago.
Well, that was some of the
Oh
best.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that
A Brutal Planet and Dragon Town.
No, it was the 2
Before
after
that?
The 2 after that.
Eyes and
Diamond.
I like Brutal Planet. I really did. And I think the reason I liked it is because I saw it perform live first.
Oh yeah, that's the first show we saw.
But that was newer stuff, new songs that I was really. I know the songs today, and when he has played a lot of those songs live, or I shouldn't say a lot of them, when he has played those songs live, I've been happy about it for the most part. But like you said, if I go see AC/DC, I don't want to hear anything off Black Ice. I don't want to hear anything off anything past Back in Black, and it kind of makes me feel guilty a little bit. Like I shouldn't be that way. Like I should be more accepting of an artist.
But you know, man, those guys didn't know they were creating that stuff. I mean, I guess, you know, they didn't realize they were making iconic hits. So they went through that whole period, and they had that Back in Black time. And then, you know, I read interviews where Malcolm was like, you know, on the next record, For Those About to Rock, they were all like, well, this pretty much sucks. But it's not bad. So they were just, just trucking along. It's probably like you guys, where you keep trucking along and you hit things and you miss things and you hit things and you miss things, right? I mean, but as an artist, you're still gonna constantly want to put stuff out.
Well, man, I'll put it to you this way: as far as anti-scene's concerned, when we got that new thing we just finished, the EP.
We're number one.
Yeah. When I got that home and listened to it, man, I was like really happy about it, and it's just like if anybody else was or not at that point didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because I was really proud of it. And when I got the demos for the new stuff we're recording, I was listening to it at my computer, man, just like, giggling like a kid about it because it sounded so good, and to me, and fortunately, there are enough people out there that they give a damn about what we do that it does
Some satisfaction.
warrant still doing some more.
Yeah.
Along with putting out this stuff from 100 years ago that, people are getting to hear for the first time.
Well, I tell you, Russ kind of hit on it when he brought up the differences in commercial, mainstream, and underground bands. And I feel like the bands and the fans of the bands of underground, lesser-known genres of music, and I should say lesser-known, but punk rock, heavy metal, and all the subgenres that are that shoot out of those two categories, the fans of those tend to be open more to a new Anacene record, a new Dwarves record, a new Slayer record, a new whatever death metal band, Cannibal Corpse or one of those bands. I feel like that crowd or that fan base is more open to it because they tend to be more music nerds. They tend to be more about music, and they also tend to. I think, and I'm not a psychologist on this, but I feel like that they're rooting for that band, their favorite band, because the band never made it big. Mm-hmm. And it's like they might still feel that band is relevant because they're not ruined by success.
Yeah, we definitely never got ruined by success.
Well, we'll take a band much bigger than Anti-Scene that, in my opinion, is still never made it big, and that's Motorhead. And they are huge, but in the scope of music fans, they're very small. Their influence has been big.
There's still a lot of people who don't know who you're talking about,
and I think,
especially around this area.
I think that Motorhead never made Metallica money. They never had that kind of exposure because even some of the most ardent metalheads only know one song. And I think that, and probably that crowd's willingness to be open to new music, has kept Motorhead somewhat relevant, more so than, say, AC/DC. Because AC/DC is pretty much a classic rock band. And Motorhead still had more of a cult following. Now, did I buy every Motorhead record that came out in the past 20 years? No. Because most of the stuff is fairly forgettable. But it always had good stuff on it. Mm-hmm. So it was a question that I actually had today going to practice, listening to this, thinking like, most of what I bought was old stuff, but the new thing that I was listening to as I was riding to practice, I'm sitting there liking something, but I'm questioning it the whole time because like I bought that new Metallica and I'm listening to it like, this sounds really good. I like it. I can tell where they ripped it from though. I'm like they reached back in their own catalog and said we need to write this part needs to be like this. And I'm not saying that's the way it is.
That's what I mean by convoluted.
Now, I don't know if that's the way they did it.
That's the way they
did it. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, well, that's, can you rip yourself off?
Well, I don't think Motorhead tried to because Motorhead was bad drumming equals good music, double bass good drumming equals bad music. So the better they got, it's like the worse they got. That makes sense.
Better musician-wise?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To me, So I don't think they were trying to rip themselves off because the songs got the musicianship got too good. That's what ruined Motorhead for me. I don't want to hear.
It lost its primal.
It lost any kind
feel.
of primal anything.
Yeah, I think most people were pretty. They kind of cringed when they would hear Lemmy say he has got the best drummer he's ever had.
Yeah, and for years I was always about good recording, and the older I get, good recording doesn't mean that much to me anymore. It's just the songs and the attitude and where it was at that time.
The vibe of
it, and that's why I kind of like that new Metallica, because to me it doesn't seem like it's recorded that good.
It's fairly raw.
But I could see anybody's point sitting here about any band. You know, it's just a time and place thing like we was talking about last week. But there's definitely a place where I don't want to hear Motorhead anymore. It's probably 88, 89. I'm good. And I'm going backwards. But what were they? But it goes back to what we were saying earlier. Lemmy was just. That's all he knew was put out records and go on tours.
Yeah, for the most part, he made the same kind of music he always has.
He probably didn't think about it as much as we're sitting here talking about.
Well, that's probably the only way they made any money because once they put out a new record, it probably had initial sales,
which would get you 5 to 6 months on the road,
and then it's like,
and
they're still selling. Copies of Ace of Spades or No Sleep Till Hammersmith that, from what I understand, they weren't making a dime off of.
Yeah, I heard they sold that off way.
Yeah, they weren't making.
That probably turned into T-shirt sales, which is why a T-shirt's $45.
Well, I think all this where it makes it relevant for everybody is whether or not you're Metallica or whether or not you're anti-scene. We're all kind of swimming upstream now because the interest in this kind of music has waned greatly as younger kids have come up. And it's like they kind of look at our kind of music almost as a nostalgia retro kind of thing.
Well, even within like punk rock or heavy metal, underground type music, even the crowds that listen to that now are so fickle and jaded and unknowing of old stuff.
What goes back to age too, man. My next door neighbor was born in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I was born in '74, so and he was like, yeah, new Metallica is pretty good. New Metallica's pretty good. So I'm sitting there going, but what's he basing that on? He's basing it on 2002 Metallica, and I'm basing it on '89. So it's a whole different dynamic of what you're even basing what you're talking about on. And the kids that are buying stuff now, man, there was kids in line with us yesterday there, dude, with stacks full of records. I had no damn clue what they even had in their hand, dude. I mean, we got there early to get Cooper and a few other things, and we're like the only two going for it. It's like we're fighting each other for Cooper.
Jimmy told me the surprise seller of Record Store Day was Eric Church.
I know who that is.
Do you know who the hell that is?
I've heard of him, but I don't know what he is. A country singer. Right?
Lunchbox sold out. They called up Jimmy, hey, do you got any more of the Eric Church, And they're like, no, we sold out of it, so.
But it's a country singer.
I don't know.
I think he is.
Could be a tap dancer for all I know. I have no idea.
Up, Russ.
I know. Well, that goes. We've joked about Record Store Day being, that I need that pink vinyl, recorded in a bathtub fart, synthesized, and it's like it sells out on Record Store Day or whatever, and then 5 years later you're like, you remember that band? What were they called?
Well, you're right, but I agree with you. But like yesterday with Cooper. Man, I'm a mark, dude. I mean, 2,500 or 3,000, I'm getting one of some bitches.
But Alice Cooper is Alice Cooper. Yeah. I mean, there's an established depth to it. There's roots to what he's got, Where a lot of these indie bands and stuff, it's like they're kind of flavor of the month club. Yeah. And I think that's also part of the relevance issue is that there is no relevance to it. It's chewing gum, and when it loses its flavor, it's all bubble gum. And that was there's a certain thing to be said about bubble gum. I'm not knocking it, especially like the old actual classic bubblegum songs, but I mean, even now, the stuff that's considered, arty or whatever else is still just bubblegum because as soon as it loses its flavor, it's over. You never hear about. I can't remember names of
Vampire Weekend.
Exactly, I remember Vampire Weekend being a number one was the first time. I remember they had a number one record, and I was like, I'd never heard of them before. And then I listened to them. It was like Sesame Street music. It was like awful. I'm like, who listens to this? A lot of people for that week.
I bought that record because of the girl that I was dating at the time.
What'd you buy?
Vampire Weekend.
Vampire Weekend.
And it's like
you didn't miss
a guy and a girl and then some other person and there's like a violin and a banjo and an acoustic guitar and
Sounds like a straight to
Right in
Netflix horror movie.
and I bought it for her because she liked them, and now I never ever hear that word. I never even hear that name of that band.
Looks like David Brothers.
No, I don't think it's quite like David Brothers.
No, I'm saying that David Brothers, if we would have wrote David Brothers songs in the Dead Kings, like you said, in the exact same songs, nobody cared. So it's got something to do with look, too, and time and place and everything else. I mean, you got to have a look.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you think? At least for that bubblegum time.
Well, did you see the picture on the back of our new record?
Yeah, I did.
That's a look, man.
I was a little bit tantalized.
we were talking about putting our our signs and our interests. Russ is a Virgo. His interests
You need to
are.
copyright
Yeah,
your
just say
signature.
Jeff and then have a little thing
Yeah.
of a Scorpio sign.
You need to copyright your signature so we can have necklaces made out of it.
I know. Old.
I'm
Like,
trying to get them to put them on pics, but they ain't listening to me.
I know that. I got I've seen. I think it was the Animals. They had a record, and on the back of it, it had like profile of each member of the band. That would.
That's pretty cool.
You got to rip that off, man.
Yeah. I don't do your ideas, man.
You tried one.
Yeah, it failed miserably.
How does it fail?
What, the tie-dye shirt?
You got the only good one.
Oh, it fell on a execution.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be redone and done properly. But
I mean, I already sold mine.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
did you,
yeah. I got $70 for that thing.
motherfucker?
I said only anti-scene reggae shirt.
He was working on your signature yesterday for like 3 hours.
And then this looks right. I had a picture that I had of me and you shaking hands.
Yeah.
Photoshop.
I just put my face on Abby.
Me from like 1985. And
Yeah.
Oh well, like speaking of records, my stepdaughter has got a turntable now, and she's getting into this whole listening to records, which I couldn't be happier. So we started her with some records from our collection. Well, I gave her our new one, of course. She hadn't listened to it yet. But her mom gave her some L.A. Guns, some Guns N' Roses, stuff like that. And I have heard her in there listening to Purple Rain,
That's good.
the soundtrack,
That's good.
And she's like, I don't have anything to listen to. I said, your mom just gave you a dozen records. I want to listen to my music. And I understand that 100% because Dad, when he knew that I was really into music, he gave me Johnny Horton, Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, all that kind of stuff, and I'm just like, what am I listening to this old shit for? This ain't Alice Cooper. I want to hear some Alice Cooper, man.
She'll get back to it.
Oddly enough, that's one of the ones my dad actually. My dad had three things. He had CCR Green River. Was it green? Was it called Green River? The one that was in the
woods.
yeah, whatever that is. And News of the World by Queen.
So he like green covered records.
And he had the green because he had Alice Cooper Goes to Hell.
Wow.
He did like green record
he liked
covers.
he liked green record covers. But no, the bad thing about I don't want to say her name. I don't know if you want the world to know, but your stepdaughter getting into vinyl now, and she wants to hear her music. Her music's all coming at $27 a pop with a download card.
Yeah, well, that's where it helps to have a good friend that runs a record store.
I was going to say, Jeff, that sounded like yesterday to me. Of course, that was what they were.
Well, and I also want to go on record. I think it's wrong that that people are able to get records before record store day opens.
No.
I have to go there and wait in line, and I think it's wrong. As much as I like Jimmy, but when people get records before record store day that are record store day records, then it ain't right. And I'm not saying anybody here has done that. I'm just saying that it's not right. And
so this
Ow, your nose is poking me in the eye.
So this is what I heard all day
To
yesterday.
go on record, though, no Record Store Day records were sold before Record Store Day.
On record.
There you go, on the record.
But I heard this all day yesterday.
Sold.
Did you guys see any of this stuff? Is every day Record Store Day? And I would have to say I disagree with it. Well, you know, because you're like, oh, I bought all this stuff on Record Store Day, and then the person that didn't go was like, well, every day is Record Store Day. And I'm like, well, no, it's not. I went to get collectible records that I love, that I'm not going to be able to get possibly.
6 months from now.
Yeah, and maybe I will. But that's why I went. I mean, I don't think every day is Record Store
the whole
Day.
Record Store Day thing we did talk about, but even yesterday proved what I said, what we were talking about before, and it's basically it should be just going to be called Collectible Day.
Yeah, it should be changed, the name.
Because I bought a Run DMC record of a song that I can listen to on YouTube. I basically paid $20 for a piece of round plastic.
Well, man, they pressed the Turtles' greatest hits. Now, has the Turtles' greatest hits ever gone out of print?
No, it's a dollar.
I wouldn't think so.
That's a dollar bin record all day long.
Or a $25 album if you want to pop it out of shrink wrap.
Yeah. Well, I think we killed that.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy it.
We good on that? Anybody have any more thoughts on
Relevance
So,
and
Russ,
record.
what'd you get-
relevance?
What'd you get for Record Store Day?
Now, listen, Russ can hate on Record Store Day all day long.
I don't.
And
hate on it. I think it's a good idea, but I'm just.
I think it's good for Record
There's
Store.
What
It's good for record
you're
stores.
saying about it is 100% right. But I will.
But you ain't got the Alice Cooper single.
That's true. It will lure me in every time something good comes. You know.
I wanted that Buck Owens coloring book they had a couple years ago, but no, that was my last foray into Record Store Day, and after that, I was like, this is
A
stupid.
Buck Owens coloring book.
Yeah, hold on
Yeah,
a
they had a
second.
Buck Owens coloring book.
Inside of Buck Owens record?
I don't think it was. I don't even think it had a record of it. I can't remember now. I just remember I wanted the coloring book. You know, and it's like
I can't
it's like
find out
anything
about
else.
this
It's like
right
it's
now,
the
Russ.
coolest thing in the world when you're something you want, but when there's nothing you want, you're just like, this is stupid.
Well, that's the first time I've ever been yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't go every year.
Yeah.
Well, I went a couple of years ago because I had got into that band Off, and I got that box set, which I still think is pretty good. And they put a couple 7-inches out on a Record Store Day, and I wanted to get them because I already had the first stuff, and I wanted to keep it up. And I was in line for about 20 minutes before this, and 2 hours before the store opened, and I said, "Fuck this."
Yeah, I never seen that. He's got that out.
He's looking into his brain.
Yeah.
He got his brain out.
What would you do with a Buck Owens coloring book? Would you have colored it?
No, it would be put away and never looked at again. It ain't something I missed. I'm just remembering that's the only time I think of it's when I think, oh yeah, that was when I.
I think it'd be cool to come up to your house, knock on the door, and you're like laying on the floor
coloring.
coloring.
His legs crossed.
You never know. You never know.
Another thing I wanted to talk about, and I thought about this yesterday, and Florence Henderson died,
Mm-hmm.
which, I don't know if anybody really cares.
I did. I thought.
Yeah, I cared. I was actually more moved by that than Castro dying.
Castro?
Yeah,
Who's he?
John Castro lives down
a
the
common.
And she represents an era of TV that I think a lot of people are fond of because of time and place, but also, and I told y'all, I know y'all did watch it. That Norman Lear. There's a new documentary about Norman Lear,
Yeah, I watched
It's excellent.
and it brought a question up to me because it seemed like in the early 70s, there was a shift in, I don't want to say pop culture. There's always a shift in pop culture. There was a shift in the approach that the TV sitcom was being made and directed.
Didn't we talk about this last time?
No. TV sitcom? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay. I don't know.
I don't think we talked about
Yeah, I thought
this.
I remember talking. Well, I don't know where you're going with it, so go ahead.
But anyway, what I was curious about, and I'm not wanting to. I kind of want to get into sitcoms, but I don't want to get into like what's your favorite sitcom. I want to know what role. I think we're all of the generation that was very where TV was embedded in our daily life. And I think that the sitcom, not even as something that you're entertained by, but I think it helped shape your way you looked at the world. And I think in the 70s, with shows like MASH, shows like Good Times, All in the Family, they approached it, they got deep. And something like the Brady Bunch, the Partridge Family, the Beverly Hillbillies, those were fun. They were entertaining. The Monsters, they were fun. But there wasn't a lot of heart there.
They didn't have the social commentary that the.
Well, most people in this room are fairly, they're not extremely left wing. But
I'm not left wing at all.
But I don't think that it's a bad thing that those shows approached those subjects. Does anybody see where I'm going with this?
Yeah. Well, but something you just said though. Some of them shows you mentioned were actually more deeply rooted in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And as they went into the early 70s, the shift kind of came. I guess Norman Lear started All in the Family, what, in 72?
No, it was before that.
It wasn't in 71.
60s. It had to be early 70s.
It was 70 at least.
Maybe 70.
It might have
I don't think it was 7. I think it was 72. And he only did 9 seasons.
Here, get your brain out again.
But it went to the 80s. I don't remember going that far.
Archie
Well,
Bunker's
Archie
Place
Bunker's Place.
went to 80
See, I
something.
done checked it. I done after All in the Family.
Oh man, the whole feel of that show was completely different.
Yeah, I don't remember even. I remember Archie Bunker's Place, but I never watched it.
But I guess my direct question is, and I guess I worded it wrong, is
January 71. It was mid-season.
Yeah, it's close.
how much do you feel TV molded your sense of humor, the way you look at life?
Oh, it did everything, man. Greg and I had a talk about this one time. If it wasn't for Warner Brothers cartoons in the mornings and after school, that's where me and Greg's entire sense of comedic timing came from, was those cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, watching shows like Good Times and What's Happening and stuff like that. I think it shaped. I can't speak for everyone, but I know it really kind of shaped who I became and my interest and the way I put things out, that I was trying to create.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it had a big influence. It still influences me to this day. And it's weird because I don't have cable television, and I don't have any pay sites except for Sling, and that was just to watch a few channels. But I watch antenna TV, meaning using an antenna.
Yeah.
And I watch Antenna TV, the station, Me TV, and Get TV, and all those, I guess they're called retro stations. But man, when you see somebody that you've seen all your life, and you see them every day of your life, man, I had no idea Florence Henderson was 90 years old.
Yeah, because you pictured her back 40
When you say Florence Henderson, I imagine that,
Yeah.
that hairdo, and I just don't think of her being, almost 100 years old.
Yeah.
It was weird when the obituary thing came out over the internet, and it said, at 90.
She 90?
How old was she?
She was
82.
I think she was 82.
How was she, 82?
Still old as fuck.
Who died at 90? I guess Castro died at 90.
Castro
I guess
died at
Castro was more
His
important to him.
sitcom sucked.
Yeah.
That's Castro.
What's happening, Castro?
What's happening, Castro? Castro, that
That's my Castro.
but okay, Steve, you and I about the same age. We are the same age, and from conversations, we base two TV. Like if someone was to ask you what your two favorite sitcoms are, I know what they are.
Good Times and MASH.
Good Times and MASH. And they share a commonality of social consciousness.
Yeah.
Do you think that shaped the way you look at the world?
Well, first of all, Good Times, man, that was just pure laughter. I didn't get any of the black meaning. I didn't get any of that at the time. It was dynamite. I was good with it.
But why? You're so black.
Yeah, really. MASH, on the other hand, my mom, no matter what was going on, she'd always be like, "MASH is on," and I'd run from the hallway, or we'd watch MASH together. And I think that was more because there were sad episodes, there was happy episodes, there was episodes in the middle, and man, I remember like staying up late to watch that last episode, and like MASH has a more meaning to me. I'm not sure it shaped my life, but I got more. My life was more shaped from movies at that time, Star Wars, sci-fi stuff like that. But as far as the shows, no, it was more entertainment to me.
Okay.
It was more just pure entertainment. Mine was shaped more from movies at the time. But that's a whole different subject. But but I can watch. But I'm like Jeff though. When I go to watch TV, man, I got no interest in anything if it's not Good Times. It's the same stuff, man. I just want to see the same stuff over and over again.
Well, I think what made those shows good is the fact that they had heart.
Yeah.
And being who I am, a white kid growing up in a trailer park in bumfuck Egypt, Midland, North Carolina, we watched Good Times about a poor black family who had a hard time making ends meet, just like the Williams family did when they lived in a little trailer in Midland. I identified more with Good Times with the Evans family more than I did the Ingalls or the Waltons. And the some of the, I don't want to say lessons. I hate looking at it like that, but some of the social, I hate using that word, message. The social undertones that were in those shows really had a profound impact on the way that I looked at life, even to this day. Because there were similarities in our own life. We had those problems. We got kicked out of a house. We got kicked out of a trailer. That was stuff that was relevant to me. That meant more to me than the Ingalls. That meant more to me than the Waltons. And then you talk about something like MASH. I'm a right wing. I'm right of center. I believe in military action when it's needed. But because I watch MASH, there's this the part in my brain, or I shouldn't say my brain. I understand the cost of when we have military action that results in the death of young men. And I'm compassionate about that, and it's because I watched a lot of MASH.
Yeah.
And those were like, I feel like that they gave us things to think about more so than what we're being given today. I think now you have to be on a side. I think you have to be on a political side, and there is no TV show. There is no.
Well, there's no more Norman Lears though. There's no more. It's not written as well, is it? I mean.
There's no pop culture outlet that gives the viewer the freedom and the space to interpret things and make up their own mind about things.
Which is why I thought Hogan's Heroes was so weird. Even then, is like, I still don't get the comedy of that. The comedy of a Nazi concentration. I mean, it's weird that even happened.
That was
to
a
me.
prisoner of war camp, not a concentration camp.
Well, I'm just saying.
You know what's even weirder?
It's weird that it even happened. Like,
You know-
who signed off on that?
I don't know, but you know what's weird for me about that is the guy that played Colonel Klink was a survivor of a. He had the tattoo
And
and
laughed all
everything,
the way through that.
and he played the Nazi commandant. But I think people had a different approach, and kind of goes into what we were talking about. MASH. My takeaway from it was completely different. MASH. I liked the show when I was younger, and then I got into the movie, or actually read the book.
Went backwards with it.
And got in the movie, but my takeaway from it wasn't so much any sort of social leaning or whatever. I don't think that had an influence on me. It's just it did a general kind of appreciation for black humor and dark comedy, and just and I always try to it's got me in a lot of trouble too because I'll pull out stuff that I think is funny and the dark undertones of stuff. But that was the takeaway I got from a lot of the stuff that I would enjoy as a kid, I think. And I never really gave much, but I understand looking back what you just said was real accurate. Is it's funny that I'd see these shows as reruns because where I grew up until I was 12, I only had one TV station, that was ABC. So I grew up with Happy Days,
Yeah.
and anything that I saw like Good Times or anything like Jefferson's, and those are all reruns I'd see in the afternoon. And if like I could relate to them, and when you're young, and this is probably the correct way, is I didn't even think about it as being a quote unquote black television show, because I related to it on a completely different scale because I was just a kid, we didn't have any money, and I could relate to that situation, but I never really consciously thought about it. But now looking back, I think that was part of the appreciation of what I had for it because it wasn't that far removed from my own existence at that time.
That's interesting you say that too, because when I watched those shows as they were airing, I never thought of it as being a black comedy either. It was just a good show. And I guess we identified with Good Times too, maybe not in the same way you did, because we were strictly middle of the road, middle class, a military family. We didn't have a lot of the struggles that people that were maybe lower middle class had. And that's why whenever, last week we were talking about the movie Gimme Danger. I think Iggy Pop pretty much grew up. I think I grew up exactly like Iggy Pop did. We lived in trailer. We lived in trailer parks, We didn't move into a house until the mid 70s, or I guess early 74, late 74. And it was only later in life when I was really having to deal with death and loss of different things that I really felt like there were serious hardships. And I think the thing that we identified with something like Good Times was the way the interaction between the kids and the parents. Mm-hmm. Because Good Times had at the first couple seasons, had a very strong mom-dad presence and how they were with the kids and the situations coming at them. Mm-hmm. And we kind of always saw things like that. But now I won't go into the specifics, mom, dad, all this and all, but that's kind of how we I could identify with it. Just that we still had both parents at the time, and it was just them dealing with day-to-day life kind of like we were. But the things, about being evicted or living in crime-ridden parts of a city, that I couldn't identify with because I didn't know anything about that.
Well, we didn't live in a crime-ridden city. That was a little bit out of my...
I understand what you meant, though. I don't mean every instance per se.
Well, yours had something to do with like James as a father figure too, right? Or James more as a stable. You told me that before, that not to get deep. But
yeah,
I'm just saying, he was like somebody that was there.
Well, he was somebody that I always said if I could have any TV dad for a dad, it would be James.
Yeah, he was good as hell.
And I think that also the writing of those shows made them not one-dimensional. Like, for instance, you take Archie Bunker, you take Hawkeye Pierce, you take even current Tony Soprano. They wrote I'm trying to think of the right words. Multifaceted, the right word? Probably not. Three-dimensional people that are very flawed. Yet they make them the protagonist of the story. They made them the good guys, even though you got Tony Soprano, who's a womanizer, he's a racist, he's a killer. But at the end of the day, you still root for him. Yeah. Archie Bunker, he's a racist, he's a crotchety old man, not a particularly good father. You're still rooting for him. Hawkeye Pierce, extreme womanizer, which I don't even think they would pass on that today in the climate we have. You're rooting for him. He's the star of the show. So I think the way that they were writing, they approached TV at the time. All that stuff's great. I think that we don't have that today.
Well, what was cool about that was in that Norman Lear documentary, finding out where that stuff came from. Because if his dad wouldn't have treated him so bad, it makes you wonder if all that stuff, we didn't be talking about this stuff. Probably not. And then talking about the Black Panthers or whatever black group that was threatening him, and that's what turned into the Jeffersons. I was like, damn, it makes sense, man. He was like, I'm just going to take that and go up with it. I was like, dang, that's pretty cool.
And you don't see a lot of that today. I know that.
You need to watch that, Russ, if you hadn't seen it.
I watched it.
That one show. What's that show that everybody likes now? It's the theory.
Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory. Like, it's. I don't know if you guys are fans of it. I'm sorry if you are.
I can't sit through.
It's fucking.
I can't sit through that.
It's fucking unwatchable.
Well, I mean, that kind of goes into what we were saying before,
Friends.
though. I mean, this is what I don't remember. I feel like I had this conversation with you guys before. It's back in the day.
You probably had this conversation with it, just not.
But you had three networks. That was it. You turn on your TV. You had ABC, NBC, and CBS. PBS. Who watched PBS? You might have had an independent. I remember when we moved from outside of Roanoke, where we could pick up one station. We moved down to outside of Norfolk, and all of a sudden I had 5. I was just like, what am I going to do? The decisions, Now you've got cable, and when cable in the 80s wasn't like it is today, they weren't producing original programming. So you still essentially had 3 networks creating original programming. But as you got into the next 2 decades into now, you've got networks that are on cable that have their own original programming. So you've got, just dozens and dozens and dozens of shows. Choices. And that the quality is going to get lessened. And it only stands to reason when you've got, that broad of a base, as opposed to, when you've got 3 networks that you're all fighting for the same audience. Now you've got 36 networks, and then you also competing with all these other distractions. I think the quality, it only stands to reason that it's not going to be the same.
I disagree with the quality. You were talking about the old shows, some of the greatest shows that's ever been, but there's a lot of shit from back in the day. You used to think it was good, and you try to watch it now, and it's unwatchable.
There is.
I can't watch more.
I think there's.
I can't watch that.
But I think the arc on that. I think some of that. The arc on some of that was, the advent of television and seeing what they could and couldn't do, and I think it peaked, somewhere probably in the early 70s, and there was, with some peaks going off, but I think it's declined since.
You tried to watch Alf?
Well, that's
the 80s, man.
The
goddamn 80s was the worst for TV.
That was my demographic.
But there were some great shows in the 80s, though, and we've just,
Webster?
No, yeah, Webster. Come on, dude.
I like Wonder Years.
The first 6 episodes of Wonder Years was great, I thought.
Well, the 80s sucked up until Fox.
But you had it was rare, but you had like, I used to like St. Elsewhere, and I started watching that last night just to see if it was as good as I remember. But then I also liked because I stopped watching TV in the 90s. When I went to second shift, and after that I just lost interest. I never watched Friends. I never watched Seinfeld. I've seen some reruns of that.
You never watched Friends?
I've seen reruns.
Well, how the hell do you know how to act in a coffee shop?
Exactly. Last show I remember watching though was Northern Exposure. I watch that regularly.
I never watched it.
But then I watched it recently. I was like, I'm gonna watch some. I watched a few episodes, and I was just like,
yeah, I like Cheers.
Cheers was
thinking
good,
about Cheers
but I don't think Northern Exposure aged as well as like,
What about Kate and Allie?
And all this is moot because well, I'm not gonna get into that. That's nerdy shit, but. St. Elsewhere.
I never knew Kate and Allie was nerdy.
No,
far be it from us to ever get into any nerdy shit.
No, I was talking about St. Elsewhere. They have the Tommy Westphal theory that all television, like 90% of all television, exists in the mind of Tommy Westphal as a character on the show. And there's a reason. It's weird, man. It was a character they had on the show that had autism. He didn't talk or anything. And at the last episode of St. Elsewhere, they flipped everything to where they made it look like the kid had imagined the whole series in his head because he's looking at a snow globe with the hot. But because of the spin-offs from that it was spun off from, and then there's characters in Hill Street Blues. It was like a spin-off of Hill Street Blues, I think, and there was characters on Hill Street Blues they resurrected these characters in like CSI, the show that's on now, or one of those cop shows. So that ties all that, and then. Because of the tie-ins and stuff. So I don't remember it, but it's interesting.
Maybe I missed something. But you're saying that the CSI shows, Hill Street Blues,
they're all linked. Yeah, it's real. Yeah, you have to look it up. Yeah, get your brain out. Look it up.
I've never watched any of them.
I never grab my phone.
But some of them it's kind of a tenuous link, but yeah, they're all kind of interconnected. Like if they watched a show on St. Elsewhere, that draws in that universe into that show, so it only exists in that kid's mind.
Well, contrary to what we've been saying, and I thought you were going to say this, and I guess maybe you weren't thinking that, but of all the crap that we have now and all the many producers of all the stuff that's being thrown at us, there is good stuff out there, and it's coming from those alternative sources of delivery. It's coming from your streaming channons.
Netflix has some good stuff.
Well, for the longest time, HBO's the ones that kind of broke the ceiling on on that good television shows.
I mean, you talk about I don't know who all likes The Sopranos. To me, The Sopranos is one of the best TV shows ever made.
I think it's the second best TV show ever.
Breaking Bad. I don't know how y'all feel about that, but it's a flawless show. A lot of people
like a lot of the Netflix stuff.
I like a lot of the Netflix stuff.
6 Feet Under. Did you ever watch that?
Yes.
That's in there. That's in the top 10, man. You can't do much better than that.
And 6 Feet Under is essentially a soap opera.
Yeah. Did you ever watch that show called Till Death Do Us Part or Till Death Us Do Part from England? Mm-hmm. You did? Mm-hmm. That's what All in the Family was based off.
Yeah. All in the Family, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there was a Sanford Son.
Steptoe and Son.
Was that before?
Yeah, they're the
original. All them
show. I meant to call you the other night when I was watching that documentary and see if you'd seen that show.
Yeah.
Because it's the same characters and everything.
But man, I'll tell you what, that stuff they showed on the Norman Lear documentary, I could watch 3-4 hours.
Well, it's
of
out
just
there.
that. Yeah, it's out there. They've got all that stuff.
That was good as hell.
Just for the audience that didn't see that, what they were showing was, all those old comedies. They were showing them preparing scenes, all the backstage stuff, of them getting ready to film and discussing scripts and all that kind of stuff. All these people dressed up like the characters that we know and love, being really serious about their parts and stuff like that.
I knew Carol O'Connor was like that.
It was pretty amazing.
The Good Times got me. I got cold chills when I seen them. But the Carol O'Connor, I knew he took his really seriously, and he was fighting back and forth on dialogue and stuff. I seemed like I knew that from years ago.
And what's funny about Carol O'Connor, he was an extreme lefto, extreme liberal, which nothing wrong with.
He don't look like it.
But he played.
You gotta say that.
He played that part like so believable. I almost have to wonder if he ever had problems in real life.
Well, they were trying to make an example of a horrible person, I think. But I think it backfired on them. I think they made America's most lovable, grouchy old man. Because people loved him.
Well, I think that's kind of what I was saying, is that like when they write those kind of characters, when they have these 2- and 3-dimensional people that are flawed, that makes them more beloved, because you do have a friend like that, or you have a grandpa that is a certain way that does not conform with the way society is presently.
I would say most people are more
molded.
like Archie Bunker than they are somebody that's normal, quote unquote. Wouldn't you? I mean,
Well,
I don't know anybody that's
either
right
like
down the
that,
middle of the road.
or they know somebody like that that is dear to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a character like Archie Bunker did so well. When I would be surprised if he did so well today.
Yeah, it wouldn't go today. I don't think it would fly at all.
But I think
It could fly because it wouldn't be on a network now. It could fly on like Netflix.
I'm talking about. I don't think that show could play on one of the major networks.
I don't think people would go for it. Like, I don't think you could have a comedy about a prison camp in Germany. I mean, they just,
No, you couldn't even show
Let's
us.
brainstorm. Prison camp, Germany. Still blows my mind.
What are we going to talk about now? Sounds like we're dwindling
I
down.
think that's pretty much it.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay. That's where you want to be.
I know. Unless you got something else.
No, it ain't up to me to invent this shit. I just come here and jump in.
You sure was ready to invent your introduction speech.
No. Yeah.
You can email that to him.
Well, I think that's all we got today. If you haven't seen that Norman Lear documentary, I forget the name of it, but it's on Netflix.
Get it out. Look it up.
And it's really good. And before we go, I want to say that a part of it that hit me real, it didn't hit me on an emotional level, but the part where it was him and Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner
all together,
all hanging out and talking. Norman Lear, just another version of you. It's about 2 hours and it goes real quick. But that part where they had all three of those guys, and I was watching it, and I told Dusty, I was like, those guys are responsible for about every good thing in TV from the late 60s for a long time after.
They've gotten their hands in it somehow.
Yeah, in some way or shape or form. So check that out if you haven't. And if you haven't, hit us up on our Facebook and subscribe to this YouTube channel that you're probably listening to this on. I am working on the iTunes things. We have episodes 1 and 2. If you haven't already downloaded it, do that. Download it, review it, share it, listen to it, and write us, the Possum Pit Podcast at gmail.com. Hit us up. All right, that's good. We'll see you guys later.
Later.